Okay, so here's your mic. You can put that on if you want.
Yep.
So do that there. Okay. So tonight is Redfish night. All the secret spots that we've accumulated over the years. Dr. Phil's going to give our perch presentation. Let me turn off the music.
All right. So you've seen the signs out, you know, near construction. It says clean fill wanted. Well, I'm clean fill, and so this is the clean fill leader. Actually, it was named after the Dirty Deeks leader. Peter Deeks is a fishing guide up in Central Florida, and he figured out you can tie a piece of 40 mono onto your light leader, and it makes a decent bite tippet. This is not a secret for fly fishermen, but it was news to spin fishermen. So I do this, but I make it cleaner, and I put on one of these little decoy V-snap number, size 0 clips. They're fabulous. The fish don't care that they're there, and you can change lures. You just see guys with 8 rods. With this, you bring 1 rod, and you got your 40 pound in case you get a snook. You're going for reds, but you occasionally get a snook out there. You know that. And then the other thing you find is there's a lot of weeds out there. So I make these little things suggested me by a guy named George Layton. He asked me to make these for him, so I made them for myself too. They're little cones. I 3D print them, and they keep the weeds from hanging up on my lure. One lure. If I had to take one lure into flamingo, it would be this. These the Gulp Pearl 5-inch jerk shads. I mean, it's like if there's one lure, this is the one for flamingo. It gets everything, and everything loves it. But then, if you're really targeting reds, you take the red version of the cone, and oops, let me find it here. It's got a little slit in it, so it'll go right over. If you do this right, it'll go right over. Come on, pop in.
Doesn't work as well when people are watching.
Exactly. There you go. There you go. Red, and of course they love a little red on the front of something. So, and then if you get tired of them hanging up on your little Alberto knot, you can have another little dinky cone on there too to keep the weeds off of that knot. And then it looks like your fish is chasing a littler fish. They like that too. So if the wind's calm and I'm going on fly, for reds, that'd probably be the first thing I'd throw. That's Borski's mackerel shrimp. And they like that. It's basic little shrimp fly, but it's got a little bit of chartreuse hackle up on the front end of it just to get their attention. So yeah, Borski's mackerel shrimp. So that's it for reds. If it's too churned up and they don't see anything, they need a little vibration, then you get a paddle tail just to make a little more vibration in the water. If it's too milky, then sometimes that's the only thing they'll hit. They just can't see anything. So there you have it. Someone else's turn now. Oh, and then where have I been getting them? There's down at Flamingo, what I've been finding lately, some of the guides have been getting skunked, but I've been finding schools of 2-year-olds, sort of sub-slot and lower slot, in clear water this deep, and down to this deep. And what I think the clear water thing is that they can see the sharks coming, but they want to be in shallow water so that the big sharks can't get in. So as soon as the water gets murky, where the mullet have been churning it up and it's kind of milky, no, I can't find a red in there. But if I get out into the clear areas, I'm getting them either in singles or schools. And there's just a small patch that I've got that's been consistently producing.
Where?
I'm not telling. but I'm surrounded by guides, but I'm surrounded by guides with paying clients. They're all around me. And nobody ventures onto my part of the flat where the fish are. It's the damnedest thing. I don't know.
Because you're in 2 inches of water.
Yeah.
Well, I'm in what like that much water. I mean, you could get a poling skiff into that, but
Yeah, if you get quite a lot, kill all the grass.
but anyway, That's where the fish are. Clear, shallow water.
Awesome. Okay.
Next.
I've been fishing redfish and flamingo all my life. My dad used to take us down on the fishing.
Here.
And it's always amazing. We usually fish the front, some of the back in whitewater. It was always amazing to me how if you get up against the mangroves and there's a high falling tide and you find them, there's 30 and 40 redfish in groups. Murray Key, Catfish Key, which is usually black drum this time of the year. Go over to Palm Key, any of those areas you fish where there's moving water going through the mangroves, particularly if you're using tipped jigs. And the tipped jig, the smell is going to go back into those mangroves, those reds are going to come out. You can use shrimp on a spoon, weedless spoon, but it'll bring them out quicker than you can believe. When you hit them, you're catching 15 and 20 fish. Roger's been there with me many times, Brian's been there a couple times, you know, and they're there, everybody goes by them. And even the guides go by them because they think they're, you know, they don't want to go slow enough. They don't want to go slow enough. They're looking to go from pothole to pothole to pothole.
See the school of 50 tailors out there by Murray, but I can't.
Joe Corbett and I one time on the backside of Murray, we saw a school of reds go into a pothole. With fly, we caught 7 out of 8. Last one we couldn't get. But it's the way it is sometimes. You know, we staked out and we just drop in the fly on there and they come up and eat. There might be sometimes 4 and 5 casts with nothing there, but we knew they were there because there was not enough water so that they could get away without us seeing them.
Clear or cloudy?
Fairly clear. And the beautiful thing was when you'd hook one, it'd always run out of the hole. The others would stay there. So they really forgot about it. By the time you got that one in, you were ready to go again. And there used to be a lot of trout on the backside too. And I understand there's still a lot of grass on the backside. Front side, you know, it's a little, you know, it's shallower on the east side. It gets a little deeper and then it gets shallow again. But any of the areas in Flamingo, particularly going to Middle Cape, try any of the little bay sides where you see there's flow of water going through those mangroves. A lot of time there's reds in there waiting, high tide falling, you know.
Awesome. All right, Carlos.
All right. I figure I may stick a little bit more towards the tackle that I like to use for redfish. And a lot of that kind of depends on the depth I'm fishing. We usually like to fish pretty shallow water. So I'm using a lot of these lightweight jig heads to make our rigs weedless. You can screw on a lot of the soft plastics right on, and you slide the hook right through, and they're weedless. And you have different size weights that are going to get your bait higher or lower in the water column.
So you got the weight on the hook.
The weight's on the shank of the hook. Right. The other ones that I've been using, I saw Phil had some, are the kind of the articulated heads. They work very well. You can rig them weedless as well, and they kind of click. So when you're using a shrimp imitation like Phil has there, and you're kind of bouncing on the bottom, they have a little click to it that helps attract the fish as well. So in murky water, this works pretty well. What else did I want to show here? Spoons. You know, spoons are something that I don't use much of, but I want to throw a little more because they're great at covering water. Nothing like a gold spoon. You throw that along oyster beds, along grass beds, and along the mangroves, and that's good for murky water as well. Attract a lot of fish. And nothing like the good old jig head. I know Eddie over there. I fish a lot with Eddie, and he catches a lot of redfish on good bucktail tippet with shrimp. So you have different sizes, different kind of bucktails. We like the flathead ones that kind of wobble down a little bit. They kind of stay in a strike zone a little longer. So yeah, that's kind of a little overview of the tackle that we like to use for redfish.
And where's your target location? What are you looking for? Clear water, running water, flats, deep water, edge along the mangroves?
That's the $1 million question.
Yeah.
Where are the fish? I guess there are a lot of variables with it. You got to kind of go with what you're presented that day. I think fishing mangroves, that middle tide is the best. If the water's too high, those fish are a lot of times too deep in there. And if the water's too low, they're kind of out in the middle of the channels and harder to get your hands on. If you're fishing the flats, You know, you need moving water on the flats, clear water on the flats. So you got to look for those kind of elements and put it all together. But that's the difficult part. So yeah, that's what you're looking for.
Okay. In the last 20 years, most of the guys that I know that fish down there still like skimmer jigs that are weedless and tip their shrimp because they gotta have production.
Yeah.
And when I was younger, I thought that I was a purist, but now I can shrimp.
It's as fail-proof as you can get, really. I've caught a couple of reds recently in snakebite channel. We didn't catch her for a while, but now I caught a couple just fishing the channel on low tides. You know, kind of concentrate those fish in snakebite channel and kind of cruise up and down. I'm trolling a little jig as I'm using my trolling motor. I'm trolling like a swim bait. Excuse me, Phil. Like one of these guys. Oh, sorry.
Stealing my fly.
Have it back. So I'm trolling around one of these guys, and the snook love these in the middle of the channel. You got to make sure it's hitting the bottom, and then I'm looking for redfish as I'm fishing for snook. So you'll see the redfish.
Tailing fish coming off a snake bite into the main channel there?
I haven't seen a lot tailing. I've seen them before, but recently I haven't seen that many tailing. I'm seeing them more kind of just a little bit deeper in about half a foot to a foot of water, kind of cruising up and down the channel. So I've seen a lot of snook on snakebite recently, though, just cruising up and down. They're tailing everywhere. All right.
Good.
Anything else?
All right. Any other questions? No?
Eddie, Redfish Ed.
No, I'm good.
Redfish Ed.
Come on, Eddie.
Tell us your secrets. Tell us your secrets. Tell us about 10,000 islands. We haven't hit 10,000 islands.
He's trying to say.
Tell us about 10,000 islands.
I want to know about $10,000.
There you go.
I can't. I want to do this. No, really.
I'll hold the mic.
No. Let Russ go.
Set the phone down. Hold that in your hand.
No. Let Russ go.
That's fine.
Let Russ go. No. I'm not good speak. I'm not a good speak.
Go ahead, just go.
Speaker. You
Just
know what I
talk.
mean? No, really.
Hold it in your hand.
But really,
keep going,
to be honest
man.
with you, no. No, but I mean, really, it's what can I say? With Carlos Wiltz was.
I'll tell you what, I fished 10,000 islands a whole bunch of times. I've never caught a redfish.
Oh, okay. Well, then I feel good about that too.
How did I get my first redfish?
But well, to get your first redfish, you have to wake up very, very early in the morning. Okay. We're usually leaving our houses at 4:30 a.m. and we're all ready to launch our boats by 6:30. But I think going out there early has always been successful for me, especially fishing out there. Those 10,000 islands.
You fishing the outside up against the Gulf?
We fish. Basically, we work our way out. You know, sometimes we go out through outdoor resort. We go out through the main channel, and we head out towards Rabbit Key, and then we go farther south past Pavilion, and then we just start bouncing around. We look for birds. You gotta look for birds, and you gotta look for bait fish. You know, you see those things, you go towards that, and usually you're gonna get a strike. Last time I was out there was with Herman, and I caught a flounder out there, and
I got catfish.
and we got plenty of catfish. But it's just, what I like to use is my bucktail jig and tip it with the shrimp.
Shallow water or deep water?
Shallow water. Shallow water. It's usually shallow water where I've been successful with the redfish.
Oyster bars? No oyster bars.
Oyster bars sometimes, but usually against the mangroves is where I've been successful. Maybe out there towards Mormon Key, Chatham, those areas there have been productive.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right. Bert, talk to us, man. Come on.
Come on, Bert.
Tell us how to
You're
cast.
selling an 18
Tell us how to
right
cast
now.
at those guys. Just, it's fine. Let's talk to us.
A lot of good things have been said about red fishing, and everyone works. I've seen redfish caught in every situation that there is. I can't tell you there's a right and a wrong way to do it. I think they'll, if they're hungry enough, baits are made for fishermen. They'll hit anything. They'll hit anything. I've seen them caught in murky water. My total enjoyment of how to catch them is high water up against the mangroves.
So that's like bass fishing, is that right?
Like bass fishing.
Yeah?
Yeah, you know how I love tossing underneath the mangroves.
You're
But
the
you know,
expert.
I've seen them caught on outside flats. I love you, Eddie, to death, but I've seen them when they're cruising a shoreline and there's not one bait fish or no moving water at all, and they're just cruising that shoreline looking for something to eat. Usually a loner. I've caught them in front of Murray Key one day, high water, and something was said that was so true. Between me and a buddy, we caught 28. They did not have size to them, but we caught over 28 redfish in front of that island, and we did not move the whole day. I've caught them on murky water. You catch them the way that I work murky water. If I'm forced to work murky water, is you put a dark paddle tail on there. You don't put a light one, you put a dark one. It's got to stand out. He's got to be able to see it. But everything that's been said here has worked. Besides me standing on top of my polling platform and polling the flat, that ain't going to happen. So if there's not enough water on the flat for my trolling motor, Bert's not there. Then I'm forced to fish the channels. But because of my inexperience, I've always gone the safe route, and that has always been pitching in the mangroves on high tide. And I know that they're in there because they're looking for crabs, shrimp, anything that's hanging onto those mangroves. So that's where my luck increases, where in the other places my luck might not. And since I'm a rookie, I got to go with the safe, what works for me. But gentlemen, I've used gold spoons, I've used paddle tails, I've used spinner baits, I've used gulp shrimp, and everything has caught them, everything. So that's my 2 cents worth. Thank you for letting me speak.
All right, awesome, thank you. All right, Phil, hang on.
Yeah, I forgot something as well.
Okay, good. I'll come back over with you guys.
So I got a friend up in Pensacola named Andy Hong, who's a recording engineer. Andy likes to experiment. He gets redfish on, get this, sauteed broccoli. And the first time it happened, he thought, oh, this is just kooky. So he tried it again. He caught a second redfish. He put another piece of broccoli on there. He got a third redfish. So they're sauteed. They're sauteed. Well, that's no, for asparagus you get barracudas, but no, he this is redfish night. So he sautés them in olive oil with garlic and sesame seeds. Okay, so there you have it. There's your redfish recipe.
Hey, now I expect you to cook.
You don't need to saute them when you fry.
I did forget one thing that I brought. These little crab imitators. New ones from Z-Man are pretty good. The kicker crabs. You can rig them weedless. Drag them on the bottom real slow. Everything eats it. I've popped it through the water column. I fish it on top. You'll catch it anywhere, depending on what kind of terminal tackle you use. The little crabs work well, and you can use one bait all day. You'll catch 20 fish on the same bait. You don't have to change it. They're really awesome. They work well.
Okay. Anybody else? Russell?
Are there redfish in Biscayne Bay?
Yes.
Yeah, the answer is yes. Yes, there are. Gotcha.
The answer is yes.
Yes?
How many?
There's 3 schools.
3 schools.
There's at least 30 of them.
South of Black Point.
Well, this is a bit of a mystery over the years that I've been fishing. People would say there are no redfish are not in Biscayne Bay. Frank Miller, a member of this club a long time back in the early 2005 or something, 2002. He and I also belong to another fishing club, South Florida Sports Fishermen Club. And Frank had a Renegade boat, 16-foot. Wonderful little boat for shallow water, but don't get in any chop with it. He and I went out in Biscayne Bay, and we were looking for redfish because the idea was that 40 years ago, the state of Florida tried to populate Biscayne Bay with a bunch of fingerling redfish, and they didn't really take. But there are remnants of, as you say, probably 3 schools of redfish in Biscayne Bay that travel the coastlines. And they make a circle, I think, and come back to the southern end of the bay and then back up. But the other fish club, those guys were pretty good fishermen, but they didn't think redfish were in Biscayne Bay. Well, Frank Miller and I went out, and we were at Dinner Key. I'm going to tell you, Herman, the exact spot, because I challenge you to go catch another redfish there. And we were catching a little barracuda, one right after another. And Frank looks up and he says, let's go over to the shoreline there to the point that almost goes into that residential area that right there at the Dinner Key. Not Dinner Key, Chicken Key.
Yeah.
So we went over there, and with a trolling motor, we were easing along the shoreline 20, 30 feet from the mangroves and casting, and I'm on the front of the boat. And all of a sudden, Frank says, Russell, look over there. And I'm turning around at the same time, and there were 4 redfish lying right under the mangroves. And I had a jig on, a flathead jig, tipped with shrimp. I flipped it over to him, jigged it one time and let it drop. One of those redfish turned and instantly just clobbered it. And I caught that fish, it was about 28 inches. Frank Miller was so happy you could hear him all over Biscayne Bay hollering. That's one catch in Biscayne Bay. There were 4 in that little group. The other time I've caught redfish, I was fishing with Herman down around, not quite to Turkey Point, but between Fender's Key and Turkey Point, again working the shoreline. We were fishing for permit. And you could see off the bow of the boat, you know, about 20 or 30 feet, some nervous water. Henry says, cast to the spot. And we were fishing for permit, and we thought that permit, that's what it was. Permit had little fiddler crabs, you know. I pitched it over there, and oh man, the action was on. And I thought I had a 25-pound permit. And finally, when he comes to the surface, it was about a 32 or 34-inch redfish. So I got into the boat and we landed that one. Then after that, you know the canal there at Fender Point that runs, I don't know, a quarter of a mile up from the bay there. And it's an awfully good spot to catch snook at night and a lot of other stuff. But I've also learned that even at Black Point Marina, on spring, say late February, early March through March, at the change of tide, when the shrimp were running, you could go down there and catch trout all the time. Well, the point is that trout move in and out of these places following the shrimp. But we were down at this Fender's Point, and we went up in the canal, I don't know, probably halfway, just kind of drifting with the trolling motor back. And we come to a place maybe 100 yards from the mouth of this. And I flip it over there, and wow, I get a hit. I reel it in, and it's about a 20-inch redfish. Henry throws it over there. He catches a redfish. We caught 9 redfish there at that spot that day. It was on a Wednesday.
Well, they always bite a lot better on Wednesday.
I found that they have a reverence for Sunday, yeah. The next Wednesday, we went back there. And we didn't do quite as well, but we still caught, I think, 5 or 6 reds and trout. We went back the third Wednesday, absolutely nothing. No trout, no redfish.
Get out.
Well, I don't think I wiped them out, but I think they move with the season, they move with the bait, they move with the shrimp. And I still think you could probably do the same thing with trout. But anyway, there was a school there. Now those redfish weren't quite as big, and I don't know how big the school was, but we had a fun day. My point is that yes, there are redfish in Biscayne Bay. I don't know, Herman, if they're going to die off from this seeding or eventually, or if the 3 schools that are there will survive. But they do migrate. I think the shoreline, for the most part, are pretty close to the shorelines of Biscayne Bay. I'm talking about the west shoreline. So if you want to go out there and look for them, go to that hanging mangrove there, straight from Dinner Key, and go over there and see if you can catch yourself a redfish.
Anybody else?
I have to say one thing. I was amazed with your story, and I'll tell you why. As most of you know, I've been in 3 other fishing clubs before this one. Do you know how many times I've told people, well, how about the redfish in Biscayne Bay? Oh yeah, but they don't bite. Good luck, you'll never catch them. They don't bite. And now you just finished flooring me because it's the first time that I've heard that the fish in Biscayne Bay bit.
Yeah.
And you're the man.
They're there. They just are very spotty, and you just have to be lucky.
That's
enough to
awesome.
get the spot where they're migrating that day.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
Now I'll be in Biscayne Bay next week.
Help yourself. I've told you where the mangrove overhang is. There, go squid and find.
That's right.
That was a great story, Dan.